Ladies and gentlemen, I will proceed in English. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Since we are welcoming a number of new people in the House, it is tradition to remind people what we stand for. The mission of the Prince Albert Fund has not changed. We have been unwavering in what we stand for, and we will continue to do so in the coming years. In essence, we have been matchmaking between companies and talent to foster the Belgian economy and our overall well-being. We've done this, inclusive of the candidates today, 440 times. At the speed at which we will be going, we can anticipate in the coming 2 to 3 years we'll pass the magic mark of 500 if everything keeps going. We not only help support the champions of today, we are very careful in matching talent with the champions of today as well as with the champions of tomorrow. And you see here on this a number of brands, a number of companies that will be the safeguarding the jobs and the economy of the future. We will be hearing, as we have as a tradition, we will be hearing from eminent PAF alumni of how PAF has influenced their career, their journey. We'll hear from Geoffroy de Schrevel, alumnus of '89, about his journey in the wonderful world of finance, from corporate finance to fintech, and see how PAF has helped him manage this journey. And of course, the pièce de résistance from today is going to be celebrating the 19 laureates we'll be welcoming on stage for their moment suprême. Before we do that, allow me to reflect extremely briefly on the last 5 years. As you have heard, this is a chapter that is coming to an end. 5 years ago, we nicknamed a project called PAF 2.0. The objective of PAF 2.0 was to rejuvenate the fund in its entirety, not the mission, but make the whole process pre, during, and post younger, more dynamic, more relevant for the times, ensure that we also doubled the impact of the funds. We wanted to ensure we had the financial acumen, the financial strength to grant twice as many grants as we were doing on average over the first 30 years. Today we celebrate our 35th anniversary. At that time it was the 30th. So over those 5 years, how have we done? Well, essentially we have reached this target thanks to the help of many, which I will thank in a moment. But on average 15, the jury is now in a situation, and the fund has the capability to support up to 30 very carefully chosen candidates. We will never, ever relent on the quality of the people we select. So I'm choosing my words wisely, up to 30 grants, not by design 30. Out of a much bigger pipeline. The good news is that we have a much bigger group of people interested in getting through this experience. What I wish to do is thank a number of people that have gotten us there over the last 5 years, starting with the alums themselves. The alumni have played a very critical role in this rejuvenation process, starting with the jury. You see here the last jury that has been selecting 30, for the first time, 30 top quality candidates that will be hitting the market very soon. Second, followed by the alumni have played roles not just in the jury, which is managed under the presidency of Michiel de Turk, and also we have alumni that play roles as mentors and coaches and help the people that are coming to the market pre, during, and post. People spend time and energy in the info sessions, and all this creates a flywheel that more and more helps more and more candidates to have a quality experience before, during, and after. So thanks a lot for that. We have also to thank a lot, and I would like to ask a very special applause for that, for all the support that Anne-Catherine Chevalier and Anneke have done and given all of you in this room and all of you pre, during, and after, because the process improvements that have happened have cost a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, especially of these two ladies. So may you join me in a phenomenal applause for that. Can you stand up? Can you stand both up, please? And these two ladies. this is women power. Last but not least, I would like to thank the very good collaboration, as Peter has already addressed, the ongoing collaboration with the FEB as part of the founders here, and we've brought on board as well the regional employer representatives. And we also thank, besides the companies that host companies that bet on our talent, and we will hear about how good a return on investment that is to bet on our candidates. We also want to thank explicitly all the people that went over and above in different ways to help us achieve the strength that we have today. McKinsey, National Bank, FEB again, Russell Reynolds. It brings me to my last slide, so it's with a heavy heart. It has been an honor and a pleasure to serve you as the chairman of the Prince Albert Fund for the last 5 years. But it is with absolute confidence and with no regrets that I can assure you that the fund is in good hands in terms of your next chairman. This chairman has been not only did he join his company, who was his host company, he actually stayed with them throughout his career. He will tell you all about it. So he's a PAF that went from the beginning all the way to now, and it ain't over yet. He is a proud father of 2 teenage daughters that keeps him honest and grounded every day and future-focused. He's a commercial engineer from UCL with extra diplomas in international management. He's uniquely qualified to embody the PAF values and to bring them further, and I would like you to have a big applause for your next chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Emmanuel Caeymaex.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure because we have a vibrant community with the Prince Albert Fund, and with the exceptional increase in grants that you have seen, this community will grow even faster. And I think the value of the network and the value of learning from each other is very significant. And Chris, you have reached the bold objective that you had set several years ago. In fact, even a year shorter than you had anticipated. So it's not only exceptional, but I think a big service, and this will help change the lives of many, many people. And what I hope to do today is to share with you how the Prince Albert Fund has impacted my life in a very positive way, and how it really fulfills its mission as an experience that leads to learning, that leads to personal and professional development. And that is, I think, what it really is about. Our consumer is the 25-year-old Belgian, ambitious graduate that wants to test himself by going overseas and see whether he can expand or she can expand her skills. And as you mentioned, Chris, it's a bit of a platform, to use a kind of a modern word now, because really we are matchmaking candidates and companies in a world that is changing very quickly. Now, what I will show you is lifting the veil a little bit on the life of a Prince Albert Fund candidate, laureate, alumnus. So stay with me, and hopefully this will lead us to discover how this enables learning, also what my motivation is to accept this great honor to chair the steering committee of the Prince Albert Fund. So this is 1996, so 22 years ago, I flew back from Indonesia, and you can notice this is how information was spread back then. And you will also notice in the corner there that to contact the Prince Albert Fund, you had to call a phone number. Right? So things have changed. You may think, he's pretty well dressed for somebody who lives in countries where nobody wears a suit. Well, the funny fact is that this is my grandfather's suit, because I arrived in Belgium and I had no nice one, so I raided his wardrobe. And whilst it was a little large, it still looked good in the newspaper. in this case, Gazette van Antwerpen. So, back then, 10 grants were given. But I think the DNA of the Prince Albert Fund has remained unchanged. And actually, if you see a few words here in this article, you will see that. You know, it's really about, it's about taking calculated risks. It's about going overseas. And I moved to Southeast Asia with UCB, but no one of UCB was there, so I had 2 pieces of luggage, and that was it. And the goal was to analyze the feasibility and the opportunity of starting up an affiliate for UCB in the Philippines. And as it turned out, the opportunity was there. And so I stayed there and ended up hiring quite a lot of people, and then did the same in Indonesia. But you know, staying close to home back then wasn't the same as today. So forget social media, etc. In '96, my first mobile phone looked like this. It had an antenna that one needed to pull out. And in the Philippines, I had no mobile phone, I had a pager, right? Like doctors in the hospital. That's how people would be contacting you, and then you had to find a phone booth and call back the person that had paged you. So the world has changed, but I think that the DNA hasn't changed. The Yahoo welcome page in '96 looked like this. So it was really the very, very first times that a search engine was becoming useful, but you can see the main way that people were going about it was to click on links. So I'm just sharing that because I recently realized that the generation that we have here is a different generation that perhaps thinks that it's all normal to have all those smartphones, which connect you with Belgium, with your family, with your friends on an instant basis. Now, as I moved to the Philippines, I learned a few things. I learned to build a team, you know, started with 0, and then you can see there's Zertek. You know, we were on a shoestring, the budgets were small, but quite quickly managed to expand the business, and by the time I left, we had about 30 employees in the Philippines. You also see a gentleman there, a little more senior. So this was our partner in Indonesia, who actually had decided that despite our contract, he wouldn't return our business to us when, you know, we thought we wanted to start our own business. So I think the Prince Albert Fund is an opportunity to really test your resilience and trying to find ways in environments where you know very little, take some risks, face adversity, learn patience, and I can tell you, patience I learned in Southeast Asia. I can remember having a lot of neurotransmitters going up and down and trying to stay calm, not to get angry in a culture where this would be destroying the relationship. I also learned that our products were serving a different need. So what you see here is the feet of a baby with scabies. Schurft in het Nederlands, of la gale en français. And so we never knew in Brussels that our products would be used to help those children not scratch themselves during the night. And so it really was a very humbling experience to visit hospitals with hundreds of patients in a single ward. And I think that living this early in your life is something that stays and that perhaps helps develop empathy. So I would really, you know, based on this, I would really encourage the next generations to look at challenges, at countries that perhaps will take you out of your comfort zone. And I was out of my comfort zone during the Prince Albert Fund for 50% of the time. You know, what you see up there is the wedding of the daughter of my Indonesian teacher. I mean, look how happy they look. You know, and this was very modest. It was a two-bedroom house, and that was the wedding, and the event was me getting there. The picture on the mountain there, that's the summit of Mount Rinjani in Indonesia. And the people that I'm with are people who today have amazing jobs. One of the guys there is currently the head of cybersecurity at Thales. And so, you know, speaking about that experience overseas, I hope you're making the most of all the contacts you can make with foreign nationals, because it's a network that has stayed. And certainly for me, I have friends that I have met in Indonesia who came to my wedding, are still my friends today, and some of them are people that I really rely on when I need advice. Going out of one's comfort zone is also learning to dive 2 weeks after landing in the Philippines with people you don't know. And finally, what you see there with the healer, this is an island in Indonesia, which you wouldn't get to if you were flying from Belgium. But when you live in those countries, I think you take chances and you visit places that you wouldn't go otherwise. So a child had deceased because of worms, right? And a shaman was communicating with the ancestors and the spirits of the forest and got in trance. And again, without the Prince Albert Fund, I don't think I would have been able to experience all of this. So really a life-changing experience. Now, where do we land here? So the value of the Prince Albert Fund to me is, first of all, linked to developing emotional intelligence, because people skills will trump technical knowledge 6 times out of 7, right? That's been proven. And I do think that working in foreign cultures really enable everybody to develop those skills much faster than if you would stay here in a very comfortable way. It's of course linked to hard work as well. So personally, the things I learned and the skills I developed were self-regulation, the patience thing in Southeast Asia, definitely, resilience, empathy, and also a new openness to experience. And before the Prince Albert Fund, I had done many things. You know, I had traveled on my own, I had been with the Scouts, I had done this, that, sports clubs, etc. But the level of experience that one can live by taking this chance is of another dimension. And so again, this is one of the reasons why I feel very, very compelled to make sure that the Prince Albert Fund remains very healthy and continues to better in quality and maybe in quantity. So, without the Prince Albert Fund, I don't think those 2 children that you were mentioning would be existing. I met my wife in Singapore, which is where UCB decided to keep me. And you can see also something about the dynamics at home. So, my spouse is French. She's of Vietnamese parents. And she was working as an expatriate in Singapore. She's now an executive coach and keeps me very honest. So it's not just my daughters. There's someone else in the house. Now, today I work at UCB, as Chris mentioned. And if you think about what it is to work with colleagues today in a company like UCB, it's a lot about co-creation with people from completely different backgrounds. And you can see that there with Japanese colleagues, with colleagues from all around the world. And again, I think that the skills that you have been learning whilst you are out there will serve you fantastically in the future of your career. If I look at my team today at UCB, so there's about 1,000 people, but the people that report to me direct are from many, many countries. And so here we're after a team building event at 40 degrees Celsius in Greece. And there's all kinds of people there. There's a Romanian doctor, a PhD from the UK, a Dutch rheumatologist, a Mexican Jewish Texan business guy, a special forces Danish person, a fighter pilot from the US, and many others, including my Indian CFO. And I do think that the ability to manage such a team was greatly enhanced by the experience that I had not only during the Prince Albert Fund, but also as this started me off in a career where I could continue to work overseas for quite a long time and really have a quantum leap, perhaps compared to my friends who would have stayed in Belgium. So I'm really very, very grateful for having had that opportunity. And my motivations are multiple. I would say a first one is societal impact. If you think about international trade today, it is critical to be able to interface with many different nationalities. But it's also very important in these days of populism, to have people who really understand other cultures, who have lived abroad and can defend the point of view of another, who can put themselves in the shoes of someone else. There's a passion for developing people, which went throughout my life, from leading scouts, helping learning disabled people, but now also as a very important business development opportunity, continuing to serve the Prince Albert Fund. I also believe strongly in free will, and that a strong free will, that providing people with the opportunity to work in an open environment and putting them in situations where they can develop their grit, the mental strength that goes with not having it easy, accepting not to know everything, in fact, sometimes knowing very little, that is a very, very important determinant of future success. And so you have gone through this, and I think that it will set you up in a wonderful way for the future of your career. Finally, it's a learning opportunity for me. And that is, I think, what the Prince Albert Fund is all about. You know, in UCB, we now have reverse mentoring, which means that people like me are mentored by people who joined the company less than 5 years ago and are in their early 30s or late 20s. Well, here, I will have the opportunities to work with many, many of you and make sure that I stay young, especially after my daughters will have left home. It is also an opportunity to work for a non-for-profit, and I do think that the development of non-for-profit organizations is more and more important in these days with all the noise we're hearing about sustainability, about corporate greed, etc. So finally, if we look forward a little bit, I'm inheriting a very, very healthy baby or even young person. I think the context that we're in is changing fast. We're at the beginning, or maybe in the midst, of the fourth industrial revolution, a revolution that is impacting society, businesses, way faster than any revolution before. The advent of machine learning will really change the way we do business, the way we organize ourselves, the way we make decisions. So what does this mean for companies? What kind of talents do Belgian companies need in this digital age to thrive in the digital economy? That is something that I would like to reflect on with you and with the board members. We also have to think about how we will start applying those technologies in selecting candidates for the Prince Albert Fund. You can see companies that are starting to use AI in their HR practices. What are the ethical considerations? Do we want to improve the power of selection and prediction by taking on those tools, or is this something that is too early? So food for thought here. There's a war for talent going on. How do we make sure that the best people continue to be attracted by the Prince Albert Fund and that we can propose that roster of future leaders to our Belgian businesses? What is it we need to think about to remain very relevant in 3, 4, 5 years from now? And finally, there is this sustainability imperative, which I know is very, very close to your heart. This new generation that was born perhaps after the Berlin Wall or was a child during that time, and who, since they have been consuming news, have been exposed to global warming. This is something that we need to take into account, and also make sure that as you join Belgian companies, that you can further that agenda, which is becoming more and more relevant. So I invite you to join me and to join the board to think about those things and define what the roadmap will be for the next 5 or 6 years, so that we can leave the Prince Albert Fund in as great a health as Chris has left it to us when we get to our 40th anniversary very soon. So with all this being said, I would like to thank you again, to say how honored and pleased I am to be able to take on this role, and also to have the pleasure to now introduce our next speaker, who's speaking about machine learning, etc., will introduce us to fintech. And I do think that I will try to pronounce your name right. So Geoffroy de Schrevel, c'est ça? Ou Schrevel? You graduated both in Belgium, at UCL as well, and at Cornell University in the United States. You've had a super international career. You have taught in Africa. You've worked in Istanbul. You've worked in Prague for a big company called MasterCard. And so since 2009, you're heading Gambit Financial Solutions, and you've taken the challenge to take this SME to become a global company. And so, Geoffroy, I would like to welcome you and to thank you for having accepted this opportunity to share your experience, your vision with us. Geoffroy, thank you very much.